Have you ever noticed that men often seem to live in silence? They don't say what they feel, they don't explain their actions, they don't reveal what's really going through their minds. And then, on the other side, you're left trying to guess. Does he not care? Does he not think about me? Does he feel nothing? But here's the truth. Male silence is not empty. When a man doesn't speak, he continues to think. And most of the time, those thoughts hide secrets that are never spoken aloud. Secrets that reveal the greatest insecurities, the greatest desires, and even the greatest fears of the male mind. Imagine the following. You are next to him, at dinner, or simply on the living room couch. He is quiet, staring into space. You ask, "What are you thinking about?" And he responds with the classic phrase, "Nothing." But I can assure you, this nothing hides much more than it seems. Men have a different way of dealing with their feelings. They have been taught since childhood that showing emotion is a sign of weakness. They have heard phrases such as, "Men don't cry," "Swallow your tears," "Be strong," and with that, they have learned to keep quiet. But the mind does not shut up, and it is in this external silence that the most intense thoughts begin to form. Throughout this video, I will reveal the behind the scenes of this silence. I will show you what really goes through a man's mind when he is quiet, what he feels but cannot say, what he thinks but prefers to keep to himself, and most importantly, how you can interpret these hidden signs and understand, once and for all, the unspoken secrets of the male mind. If you've ever wondered why he doesn't text you when you expect him to, why he disappears at important moments, or why he seems distant even when he's by your side, stay with me until the end, because here you will discover that male silence is, in fact, a language. A hidden language, but one that, when deciphered, can give you all the answers you've always wanted. This video is not about guessing thoughts. It's about learning to see beyond what he says, or what he doesn't say. It's about entering the male mental universe and finally understanding the codes that govern his behavior. In the next few minutes, you'll be surprised to realize that many attitudes that once seemed cold or indifferent actually hide deep feelings, and that behind the silence, there is a man full of doubts, fears, desires, and even weaknesses. So get ready, because from now on, we're going to dive into the male mind together. And I promise you one thing, after watching this video, you'll never interpret a man's silence the same way again. When a man chooses silence, it doesn't mean he has nothing to say. Most of the time, it means exactly the opposite. He has so much inside him that he doesn't know how to express it. The male mind is like a locked safe. From the outside, you only see a closed, cold door that reveals nothing. But inside, there are emotions, insecurities, memories, and even fears that he avoids sharing. For many men, silence is a form of self-protection. From an early age, society teaches men to keep their emotions to themselves. When he is a child and cries, he often hears phrases like, "Swallow your tears," "Be strong," "You can't show weakness." These phrases, repeated over the years, shape a dangerous idea that talking about feelings is a sign of weakness. Thus, when they become adults, many men already carry a block within themselves. They feel, but they don't say. They suffer, but they don't share. They love, but they don't express it. And this invisible barrier creates the silence that you so often witness. Another important point is that silence is also an internal process of organization. Many men don't speak right away because they need time to process what they feel. Unlike many women who find relief in sharing, men often seek answers within themselves. They immerse themselves in their thoughts, analyze, reflect, and only then decide if it is worth sharing in words. But here is the most curious detail. This internal process can last for hours, days, or even never be expressed. And it is not because they do not feel it, but because they believe that exposing it can lead to judgment, rejection, or even loss of respect. Psychology shows that men tend to experience double emotional pressure. On the one hand, there is social pressure for them to be strong and independent. On the other, there are their own feelings that continue to pulsate within them. The result? They create a silent world as a way to survive. This silence, however, should not be confused with indifference. In fact, when a man is silent, it is often because he is thinking about something important. He may be reflecting on the future, worrying about financial problems, dwelling on insecurities, or even trying to find the best way not to hurt you with words spoken in the heat of the moment. Behind the nothing he says, there may be doubt about whether he is good enough for you, the fear of losing what he has built, the insecurity of not meeting your expectations, or simply the effort not to show weaknesses he has carried since childhood. Understanding the psychology of male silence is like opening the door to that safe. It is understanding that, for men, talking can be painful, that putting feelings into words requires courage, and often they have not been trained to do so. In the next few sections, you will discover how to interpret the hidden signs in his behavior. You will learn to identify when silence is just reflection, and when, in fact, it hides something much deeper. And above all, how not to get lost in assumptions, but to use this knowledge to truly connect with the male mind. Because, believe me, what he doesn't say can reveal much more than what he does say. If male silence is a safe, inside it there are secrets that are almost never revealed. And not because they don't exist, but because many men simply don't know how to put their feelings into words. Now I want to open that safe for you and show you the most common secrets that most men keep silent. First secret, the fear of not being enough. No matter how confident a man may seem, deep down many carry the doubt. Am I good enough for her? Can I offer what she expects of me? This fear is silent but constant. Men may worry about not having enough money, not having enough status, or even not being attractive enough. But instead of saying this out loud, they prefer to remain silent and try to prove themselves in practical ways, often in silence. Second secret, the difficulty of showing vulnerability. Most men are afraid to show weakness. They avoid crying in front of others, avoid confessing their insecurities, and rarely admit that they are experiencing emotional difficulties, not because they don't trust you, but because they have been trained their whole lives to believe that vulnerability is synonymous with weakness. So when they are suffering, they prefer to shut themselves off and face it alone. Third secret, silent comparisons. As much as they never say it, many men constantly compare themselves to other men. They may look at a friend's professional success, someone's body at the gym, or the way another man treats his partner and think, am I falling behind? These internal comparisons erode male self-esteem, but are rarely verbalized. They prefer to carry this burden in silence while outwardly displaying confidence. Fourth secret, the pressure to maintain an image. Men feel they need to be strong, rational, protective, and often even cold. But behind this mask is a human being who feels fear, sadness, and doubt. Still, they strive to maintain the facade because they believe that if they let this image fall, they will lose respect. Silence in this case is the armor they use to protect themselves. Fifth secret, the love they cannot express. Yes, many men love deeply, but they do not know how to express that love in words. They believe that actions speak louder than words, and so they do not say I love you as often as you would like to hear it. But that doesn't mean they don't feel it. In the male mind, often that gesture of fixing something for you, protecting you in a difficult situation, or simply being there in silence is the truest form of love. Sixth secret, thoughts of giving up. This is a delicate but real point. Many men in moments of pressure have thought about giving up everything, a relationship, a job, responsibilities, but they don't talk about it for fear of appearing weak. They prefer to fight in silence, even when their minds cry out for help. These secrets are not spoken, but they are there, hidden in every silence, in every distant look, in every pause during a conversation. Understanding this is essential, so that you don't fall into the trap of believing that he feels nothing. He feels, and he feels a lot. The difference is that his language is not spoken, it is silent. In the next few sections, I'll show you how to better interpret this silence. You'll learn to differentiate when he's just reflecting and when he's hiding something deeper. You'll also learn how to transform this knowledge into connection, creating a stronger relationship where even silence becomes a bond of intimacy. Because ultimately, men don't say everything, but they're always thinking. And these thoughts, even when kept to themselves, say a lot about who they really are. By now you have realized that a man's silence is not an absence of thought. It is, in fact, a reflection of everything he feels but cannot or does not want to put into words. The big question is, how to interpret this silence without falling into the trap of imagining things that do not exist. The first step is to understand that not all silence is the same. There are different types of male silence, and each one reveals a different intention or emotional state. Knowing how to differentiate between them is what will give you the clarity you need to avoid getting lost in assumptions. Silence for reflection. This is the most common. It happens when a man needs to organize his thoughts. Perhaps he is thinking about work problems, financial decisions, or even something simple, like how to solve an unexpected problem. In this case, the silence is not against you. It is just mental space he needs to process. If you try to force an answer at that moment, he may feel pressured. The best attitude is to respect this time and understand that when it's over, he'll probably come back more relaxed. Defensive silence. This one is more delicate. It arises when a man feels that speaking could lead to conflict or expose a vulnerability. So, instead of opening up, he prefers to remain silent. It's as if silence is a shield that protects him from judgment or an argument he doesn't want to face. At times like these, insisting on talking now can push him further away. The ideal thing is to show that you are open to listening without pressure, so that he understands that he will not be attacked if he opens up. Silence of distancing. This silence is a warning sign. It appears when a man begins to distance himself emotionally, either because he is overwhelmed or because he is really losing interest. It is different from the silence of reflection, because here there is a greater coldness, a lack of connection. He not only avoids talking but also avoids being present. Identifying this silence early on is important so as not to confuse it with temporary indifference. Silence of love. Yes, there is also silence that expresses affection. Some men believe that silent presence is already a demonstration of love. Sitting next to you, sharing a simple moment without words, or just watching you, can be, for him, the most genuine way to be close. In this case, silence is full of feelings, even without spoken words. Now that you know these types, another question arises: how to interpret them without making a mistake? The key is to observe not only the absence of words, but also nonverbal cues. The body speaks all the time, even when the mouth is silent. Observe the gaze. When he looks away or when he maintains eye contact, it says a lot about how he feels. Notice the gestures. Restless hands can reveal anxiety. Crossed arms can indicate defensiveness. Notice the proximity. If he continues to seek closeness, the silence is not rejection, but rather silent presence. And above all, analyze the frequency. If the silence is momentary, it is probably reflection. If it is constant and distant, it may be a sign of something more serious. Another important point: don't personalize every silence. Often, men are silent because they are dealing with internal struggles that have nothing to do with you. When you understand this, you avoid creating negative narratives in your head such as, "He doesn't like me anymore," or "I'm not important." The reality is that most of the time, silence says more about him than it does about you. And here's a secret from psychology. Men tend to open up much more when they feel emotionally secure. If you create a space where he understands that he can speak without being judged, interrupted, or criticized, little by little, his silence will begin to turn into words. Therefore, interpreting male silence is not about pressuring him to speak. It's about learning to read between the lines, observing the signs, and providing an environment where he feels comfortable opening his heart. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to use this knowledge in a practical way, how to turn silence into connection, and even intimacy, creating a deeper relationship where every pause has meaning. Because in the end, it's not just about hearing words, but learning to hear the silence. Now that you've come this far, you must have realized that male silence is much more than an absence of words. It is, in fact, a hidden universe full of feelings, fears, insecurities, and even forms of love that are not spoken aloud. Behind, "I'm not thinking about anything," there is always something, and often that something is deeper than you imagine. The truth is that men have been conditioned to believe that speaking is dangerous, that showing feelings is risky, and that keeping quiet is the safest way to maintain control. But this silence, when not understood, can create distance, hurt, and even a feeling of rejection. That's why understanding the secrets of the male mind is so powerful. When you start to decipher the unspoken signs, you stop suffering from assumptions. You stop imagining 1,000 stories in your head and start to see what is really happening. And most importantly, you start to relate to the real man in front of you, not the version that fear creates in your mind. His silence may mean reflection. It may mean defense. It may just be his way of dealing with an inner world he has learned to hide. But it can also mean presence, love, and care in a way that cannot be translated into words. And here's the final key. Don't try to change his silence. Learn to listen to what it really means. When you understand this, the relationship ceases to be a guessing game and becomes a space for true connection. You realize that even in the moments when he doesn't speak, there is something to be understood. Now I want you to ask yourself a question. How many times have you felt lost trying to decipher a man's silence? How many times have you interpreted what was actually just a moment of reflection or fear as disinterest? Perhaps many. But from today on, you will no longer look at silence in the same way. You have a new perspective in your hands. A perspective that sees what lies behind, that understands the hidden codes and knows how to interpret what is not said. And if you've made it this far, I know this content has made sense to you. So I want to ask you two very simple things. First, share this video with someone who needs to hear this. Maybe a friend who is struggling to understand her boyfriend, or someone who is unsure about their relationship. You can help that person see what is hidden in male silence. And second, subscribe to the channel right now. Activate the bell to receive notifications because every week I bring content that opens your mind and helps you better understand the male universe. Here, we talk clearly, simply, and directly about what no one else explains to you, but what makes all the difference in your love and emotional life. Remember, silence may seem empty, but it never is. Within it are secrets, feelings, and answers that you just need to learn to decipher. And now you have the tools to do that. So don't see his silence as a wall. See it as a door. And every door can be opened as long as you know the right key. That key is in the knowledge, patience, and wisdom to look beyond words. I hope this video has shed light on points that previously seemed confusing to you. And if it made sense, leave your comment below. Tell me, have you ever been in situations where a man's silence confused you? Share your experience because it can help others who are going through the same thing. Thank you for staying with me until the end. And never forget, men don't say everything, but they are always thinking. It's up to you to learn to listen to what silence has to say